The Getting to Know You podcast has gone international once again. I'm joined by a woman I've known for about 13 years now. Met
Yes.
her in a customer service role back when I was many jobs ago. But she is from Canada,
Hello from
Ontario,
Canada.
Ontario, I believe,
hmm
just on the north side of Lake Ontario from Buffalo, New York. Is that accurate?
Correct.
All right. Well, we've been trying to line this up for quite some time. First things first, I know you've listened to or watched a few episodes of the show. First,
Yes.
where do you watch them on YouTube or Spotify?
YouTube.
Okay. Uh, what episodes have you watched?
I watched Mike and Mindy.
Is that Mike Beaver Burkhart episode
Yes.
of Between the Levees? What do you think about Beaver?
I feel there was two pieces that stood out to me the most. The first I felt was the power of being with an industry for so long and seeing the way that it evolves over time and the way that some things improve and some things devolve. And I think one of the pieces I really appreciated is that when he shared how he likes to train new individuals to not lose their faculties or sharpness as a result of, he didn't say technology, but obviously the modern ways that, business has moved. And he enjoys, learning how, or in teaching how to read the waters. Is it a deep ripple? Is it a shallow ripple? How will it be impacted? And so I found it very interesting, of course, to see somebody be able to share those accounts. And in the realm of safety, I think that was something that really stood out, as we've both worked in safety sensitive industries. To see him say, back in the day, there was almost a rush to make things happen faster to save money. And at times that can come at a cost of safety. And that as we've, evolved and become more conscientious and changed the way we do some things, we've been able to really focus and prioritize safety over, because there isn't a time constraint or an hourly circumstance. It's safer. So I enjoyed that portion. And the other piece that really I found emotional was him explaining how he unexpectedly received the news that his sister had passed on while he was at work. And I think you'll hear a lot of people say, work is work and my life is my life, and they don't kind of cross paths or interject, or we don't see how they kind of meld in. And what Mike had shared was that when the news came that his sister had passed, every person that heard of his sister's passing was opening their wallets to offer their credit cards, how they could be of assistance, what they could do to get him home faster to his mother, and ask him if his mother needed help as well. So seeing that level of community and family come together, he said people that he hadn't even actually met, just spoken to on the radio, had found a way to kind of make contact and see how they could be of assistance. And I think that's oftentimes something we may overlook in industry, is like a job versus the community we can create when we prioritize people. So that was really heartwarming, and I found it emotional listening to his account, because he said, the most junior guy on the crew had a young family, probably didn't have $40 to his name, but he was ready to hand it over. And I think that is the power of really investing yourself versus a version of ourselves when we show up to what we say is just work.
Did you know anything about the barge industry before the podcast?
Nothing. It was very interesting to listen to. And obviously I'm still very much in the dark, but just hearing some of the terminology, and I would never have had any idea.
I hope you find some time to check out a few more.
I
And
will.
then of course you took a look at Mindy Dennis on the other podcast.
I did, yes. And I really appreciated a couple of components about what she shared. I think what I see in both Mindy and Mike's podcasts is people are super authentic and transparent. People are comfortable sharing their experiences, understanding that the audience wants to hear truth and authenticity, and that we all have the opportunity to connect with one another's paths and experiences. So I thought that was really amazing. One of the pieces that really stood out to me with Mindy is Hurricane Katrina, and how her entire family had lost everything, and how she recounts that she was having to kind of step over bodies of her family members in her home very shortly after giving birth to their child, because none of her family had any homes anymore. And so everybody just kind of piled into the one remaining home and made the best of it. Obviously, we don't have natural disasters of that magnitude or type here in Canada very often, or where I live in, a major metropolis, like you said, just over the border. And we have not experienced anything of that nature. So it's just, I remember the devastation. I remember watching the news and just wondering, how will people fare this? How will they survive this? How will they come through this? And to see somebody speaking of it so many years later and their experience of it was very interesting and powerful.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it, and I expect something. And I expect similar results out of our conversation here today.
Intriguing, dynamic, captivating.
We'll take it. So let's get started.
All right.
Tell me, of course, where were you born?
I was born in Montreal, Quebec, in Chateauguay.
And what did your parents do for a living when you were growing up?
My mom was a training consultant at a college, and my dad was a contractor for renovations.
What kind of stuff did he do normally?
Home renovation. So like drywall, electrical, plumbing, flooring, you name it. My dad could build a house.
And you have an older sister?
Younger.
Younger sister.
Younger sister, almost 5 years younger.
That's your only sibling?
It is, yes.
Well, what was life growing up for you?
Interesting. I would say interesting. When you're young, you don't know anything different, right? So you're going about your life. So I would say we had lots of activities to do. And, we did the swimming and the dance and the soccer and all of those things. Those were really important to my mom because she was raised in an orphanage. And that was something that they were given access to, was activities. And she really felt like it was a game changer for your development, your confidence, your ability to be a team player. So she just really saw the value in that and wanted my sister and I to participate in these things. So that was most of our childhood, was sports, swimming, dance, and camping, I would say.
Well, how about school? How were you in school?
I was not the best student. I was a bit of a chatty patty. I really enjoy communicating with people and connecting with people. And so from as young as I can remember, when it would be parent-teacher interviews, and my mom would go in for the parent-teacher interviews, she would ask whose desk is beside the teacher's. And they would say, that's Carla's desk, because she won't stop talking. So some qualities and characteristics don't ever leave us. And I would say that is one that has remained with me throughout the years, is enjoying speaking to people and connecting with them.
Any interesting stories of any antics from grammar school, maybe secondary?
I was pretty well behaved in secondary school. I never skipped. I was always afraid of doing the wrong thing. So I didn't sneak out. I didn't skip classes. I didn't try anything like smoking or weed or anything of that nature. I was just very much so about finishing high school. So that was pretty much my priority. I played soccer throughout high school and hung out with my friends, and that was about it. Didn't get into anything too much.
What about college?
So university was a challenge. I would say I'm not your typical academic. And I think that when we look at grades, we anticipate that grades equate to intelligence or capacity for learning, because we really only teach in one way and test in one way. It's really hard to gauge who we're missing out on. So I would say university I found very difficult and very disjointed. You're sitting in an auditorium of, a couple hundred people with a professor talking at you for 3 hours. And then you get 3 large exams in a span of 3 or 4 months, and that is it. So I think I learn at a more granular level. I enjoy the cultivation and learning portion of knowledge and building that acumen. And so university was a real struggle for me. It just felt too disconnected and too disjointed. Not enough engagement, not enough connectivity.
What were you studying?
French language and literature.
What was there an intended career goal following that, or you
A
just,
teacher.
okay.
Yeah, I planned on being a teacher. And I think that was status quo at the time for our age. There was a lot of news articles going around at the time indicating there was going to be a mass teacher shortage, that all the baby boomers were going to up and retire, and the education system would, hit a snag and be without educators. And so the anticipation was to go to school to get a teaching degree and to obviously have a teachable. And since I speak French, it was an easy selection. Gratefully, it didn't work out that way. And when I did graduate, all of the individuals that had, I shouldn't say all, many individuals that graduated with teaching degrees were not able to find employment because baby boomers had opted to not retire at the time of they could retire. And so we had this influx of too many teachers and not enough placements. And so there was a lot of layoffs and a lot of individuals that were not able to find placement.
Well, where did you land professionally?
I think that's one of the gifts that happens when you have a second language on your resume, is that you hear about people seeking a career intentionally, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And so I ended up working with a career counselor, and they placed me in a couple of opportunities initially. And I had been offered permanent, but they weren't the right fit. So I had been placed at a medical company and a bank. And I just felt like they were a little bit too, generic's not a nice word, but just not enough opportunity. They just felt a little bit like you might get stuck there. So I was offered an opportunity with a well-known medical corporation in our area, Baxter Pharmaceutical, and I had the opportunity to join them as a French customer service representative for their hospital care side. So I was there for 4 years, and I really enjoyed my time there.
Anything interesting to share about your time there?
Just that you start to really connect in your first permanent opportunity outside of your post-secondary education. And I think one of the pieces that I learned and realized was that traditionally you would have been told that you get into a company and you stay there and you grow and you don't leave, you just stay steady, you'll keep getting promotions, you'll keep getting increases. And so when it came to the 4-year mark and I was contacted by a headhunter for a lot more money, I had a crisis of conscience. Like I was abandoning the place that had given me my first opportunity, and that I should stay the course and not rock the boat. Stay with consistency, stay with safety, stay with reliability. And I am very grateful that I've always done the opposite, because I will never regret each progressive opportunity to move to another organization and really see what you're capable of, how you can grow, how you can develop yourself, and the opportunities that can arise out of that. So after the 4-year mark, I was headhunted to Petro Canada lubricants. And they were owned by Suncor Energy at the time. And that was, at that time, just the coolest and most amazing opportunity. And I felt very grateful to have been gifted that.
Well, I can recall after one of our first phone calls. What year would that have been when you started with?
2011.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd been with Lord for about a year. And after one of our first conversations, I remember hanging up the phone, saying to myself, there is no way there is any human anywhere that happy and positive.
I love that. Thank you.
Where did that Where did that spirit develop?
I think a lot of reading and a lot of counseling, I would say, and a lot of choice. I think when life is difficult or heavy, or you feel a lack of belonging, it's very easy to get sucked into the abyss of sadness. It's very natural to feel, why me? Or why do things not go my way? Why is this so difficult? And it's going to sound a little funny, but what I found is a movie called The Secret, and it actually originates from a book. And I watched that movie and I kind of said to myself, if I believe in this, I am, and nothing is actually comes to fruition, then I'm just a happier person. But if I don't even try to believe in this, then I just stay in this same place of sadness and struggle and despair, and nothing improves, and I don't elevate, and I don't grow, and I don't evolve. So what do I have to lose? It's kind of the same question someone had asked me back in high school. Why do you believe in God? What if he doesn't exist? And I would say, if he exists and there's a heaven, I get to go there. And if he doesn't, I was just a better human. I was a kinder, more loving, generous human. So it was the same kind of experience for me with The Secret, is if I put my faith in the universe and I believe that it wants to bless me and gift me with a good life, and it doesn't come to fruition, at least I'm happier living the life I live right now. And maybe it does work and blessings continue to flow and I continue to show gratitude, and it just creates this beautiful centrifugal experience of gratitude and blessings, gratitude and blessings. And it's worked. Doesn't mean there isn't shitstorms by any stretch of the imagination. There is still tears, there is still heartbreak, there is still struggles, but you just acknowledge it's a moment in time, not your whole life. It's an opportunity, it's a gift, it's an experience, even if it breaks your heart or causes duress, there is something amazing that is going to come of it if you just open your mind, your hands, and your heart to receive it.
Well, I've not seen the movie or even heard of it. What was the big secret, if I may?
The secret is literally your mind is so powerful that anything you wish to create is possible. But we humans by nature enjoy investing in negative self-talk, or that nothing ever works out for me, or everybody is against me, or life is so tough. And when we give those words and that energy power, that is what we place into the universe. And so if on my day-to-day I get up and I say, oh, I have to get up again. If when I wake up and I go to, oh, I have to go to work again. If I walk outside at the same time as the neighbor, oh, the neighbor again. What am I putting out into the universe? I'm putting out sadness. I'm putting out annoyance. I'm putting out anger. And what you'll see is all of a sudden there's so many roadblocks, and all you can see is roadblocks. You know, you almost hit the guy in front of you because he slams on his brakes. Every light on the way to work is red. The elevator won't come for you. Nothing is going your way. And we really don't acknowledge how much power we have in our perception. So when someone says, oh, I missed the bus, like this never happens. The guy was 3 minutes early. He should have waited for me. We don't think, what if I was being saved from something? What if I rushed to get that bus and I got off of it at my stop and I got hit by a car and that was it? What if the universe blessed me with this opportunity to keep on going? But we prefer to look at the glass half empty or half full versus that it is refillable. And so no matter what comes in life, if it's a bad moment, I'm sure you've heard someone stubs their toe in the morning, it sets their tone for the day. I stubbed my toe, nothing's going to go right. Spilt my coffee on my shirt, stubbed my toe, couldn't get a parking spot. And now we've just created all of this negative friction in our space, and we can't understand why nothing will work. But if you let that toe stub be just a toe stub and you don't wrap a whole story around it, if you let that spilled coffee be, well, I guess maybe I should have talked less and drank more, or stood still while I was drinking the coffee, or started my day 10 minutes earlier, then I probably wouldn't have stubbed my toe, spilled my coffee, missed whatever. So it's just a mindset. And what that mindset does is it creates this massive channel for joy, for peace, and it allows it to multiply. So whatever we want to multiply, that's what we need to invest in. That's what we need to put our thoughts into. That's what we need to put our words into. If you give it breath, you give it power. So what are you putting power to? And that's what I try. It doesn't, like I said, it does not mean that some days you're not like, it just means that you acknowledge it's a moment, not the whole story. So I'd say that's where my deep joy and gratitude comes from. When I wake up in the morning, I start with gratitude for 3 things. And I find that when you ask someone to say, what are 3 things you're grateful for? They kind of sit there and they think about it for an extended period of time. And you're like, it's really too long, because there's already so much to be grateful for without even thinking of family, friends, careers, finances, homes. When I wake up in the morning, I have breath in my lungs, I open my eyes to see the sun, and my feet hit the ground. I already have more than someone that didn't wake up today. And as long as you woke up today, sky's the limit. Perspective.
It is quite a perspective. I like to see that it exists out there.
It does.
But let's get back to your career. So tell me about your time with Petro Canada.
I was with Petro for 9 years, and I was very fortunate. So I was hired to be a customer order management representative for British Columbia. And then I think it was like 6 months in, there was an opening on this team, and they used to say nobody wants to be on this team. And I'd heard about it, but I just thought, I'm so new, I won't get the opportunity, so I won't even try. So I come into work early one day, and one of the managers pulls me aside and she says, we have an opening on this team, and we'd like to know if you'd like to join it. And I said, absolutely, I want to join it. And so when I joined the team, there was many things I questioned, but obviously when you're learning and you're the new kid, you just need to pick it up and go with it. And then once you understand it a bit better, then you can possibly make improvements. What I found is that what everybody did not appreciate about that division was what I loved the most. It was so young and so fly by the seat of your pants, and there was so much autonomy in it. So I think a lot of times when we move into roles, we expect there to be kind of decisive action items. And so, step 1, step 2, step 3, this is what we do. You have the authority to do this, and then anything else you have to ask. With this division, it was kind of growing so exponentially that new things were popping up left, right, and center, and you were either a troubleshooter or you were sinking. And I love a good fire. So like, if you give me a burning building, that is my joy. Like, give me crises, I will fix it. I will put out the fire. I will save the flood. Like, these are my jam. I love this stuff. So when I moved into the division and everyone said like, this is not fun, you will not like this, I absolutely loved it. And I pretty much gave it my life. So I moved from the national account customer service desk or customer order management desk to the distributor order management desk, which is how you and I were able to connect in 2011. And then from there was an opportunity that they had created a new role, and they had said that I should apply for it. And I didn't see how I fit, just that I was really passionate about the business and that I loved it and I believed in it. And I got the role. And I stayed in that role for 5 years. And I knew every corner of that business. And I believed in it. I still believe in it. I was passionate about it. I love the customers. I'm still friends with many of our distributors to this day. When I travel to the States, I will visit with them. So yeah, it was just an incredible gift because it wasn't just a job. It was a large portion of my career that brought me exceptional joy, and exceptional growth. Lots of very challenging opportunities, lots of very challenging personalities, including my own. I can own that I am a firecracker, and when you have a lot of firecrackers, there's explosions. So it was nothing short of a blast, is the best way that I can describe it. And I didn't think I would ever leave. I just thought I would continue to grow exponentially with PCA as a result of my passion, my knowledge, my acumen, and my dedication to that growth. And I happened to be headhunted at the 9-ish year mark to a US organization. And similar to what had happened from Baxter to Petro, and I felt, I think this is my forever. I can't imagine leaving, but I think I can grow more and do more. And maybe this is the opportunity. It doesn't mean goodbye forever. Maybe it just means I'll see you later. And so what did I have to lose by throwing my name in the hat? When they contact you for these opportunities, there's no guarantee you're going to be the selected party. There's usually a whole pool of eligibles, and you're just throwing your name in the hat.
What was the new role?
It was Director of Business Development for Canada with Phillips 66. So it was an organization I was familiar with, not familiar with its magnitude. Holy Hannah, it's a big ship. Lots of moving parts, lots of opportunity. And I felt really grateful to have the opportunity to interview for that role and to work with that team. So it was sadly a very short stint, thanks to Corona. No, the word no one wants to speak of.
How long were you there?
18 months.
And how was the COVID experience up there?
It was so different from the States. And it was very difficult to explain culturally the difference in approach and the way it was managed. I'm sure, as you saw, many parts of the US were open within a couple of months, where Canada stayed very restricted. Businesses were mandated to remain closed. There was no, indoor dining for a number of months. There was no in-office work for a number of months. There was so little information, and it was moving so quickly. And I do find that they really erred on the side of caution in an effort to protect as many as possible. So that was, I would say, conflicting with what was going on in the States and what would have been occurring with our head office in Texas. So there was some challenges in trying to explain the difference in landscape, I would say.
What do you think are the costs and benefits, or maybe the advantages or weaknesses of nationalized healthcare up there?
Okay, that's a great question. So I would say the disadvantage everybody knows is a longer wait time. So you know how you go to the emergency room and you're triaged. So it's, the most urgent. That's kind of how it is with everything in our healthcare system then. So I can go to the doctor anytime and it's zero out of pocket. And I think that was something that I really understood the value of this gift when I went to do some on-site training at a distributorship in the South, US. And I was sitting with a customer service representative who did not have the ability to go to the doctor because it was going to be like, I don't know, $160 or something of that nature, $180. And it wasn't in the budget. And I was quickly quieted with any complaints that I would have as a Canadian in regards to access to healthcare, because if I break something, I just go to the hospital, they take x-rays and they put a cast on it. And then I come back in 4 to 6 weeks to get it checked out. Then I come back in 2 to 4 weeks to get it checked out. And there is no expense to me other than the parking. So I will say that though we might wait longer, the access is life-saving. I don't have to worry if I'm going to lose my home if I get cancer. It's no expense to me to receive cancer treatment.
Well, how is all that funded?
Through our taxes.
And are taxes higher there than here?
We pay, I would say, each province has different taxes, the same way each state has different taxes and different populations and different demographics of populations, different access to medical care, hospitals, clinics, things of that nature. But it is accessible, readily available, and there might just be a longer wait time.
I don't know much about the geography of Canada. I know that it's sparsely populated for being such a substantial landmass. Where you live,
3 million.
Where you live, is that the heaviest population density?
Yes, I would say it's probably the most densely populated province.
Do you know what the population is there?
No idea.
But 33 million across Canada.
Is Canada total?
Right.
Let's see. Should we Google it? Population of Ontario? Almost 15 million. So almost half the country's population is in one province.
And how large is that province?
Like landmass? Oh,
right.
That's a very good question. Okay. What is the landmass of Ontario? Let's see here. 1.076 million kilometers squared. Kilometers, not miles. Ontario is Canada's second largest province, covering more than 1 million square kilometers, an area larger than France and Spain combined.
And you said the population was about 15 million?
Yes, and the entire population of our country is 33 million. So almost
Right.
50% of Canada's population is in Ontario.
Well, looks like the state of Louisiana was almost 5 million people
Wow.
2 years ago. Anyway.
Yeah, the States is like 333 million people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So when did animal rescue come into your life?
Oh, I've been in animal rescue for 20 years. So I was in my probably second or third year of university when I was sharing an apartment with a landlord. So you're a student, you're just trying to find a safe space to live. And I ended up renting a room in an apartment building, and someone had abandoned their cat in their apartment for when they moved out. They just left it there, told nobody. Eventually somebody told us, we don't know how long it had been in there, but it was in dire straits. And I took the cat to the Humane Society in the city that I lived at the time. And I was volunteering there every other day, probably, with cat socialization, dog walking, cleaning enclosures. And it was probably one of the most devastating and heart-wrenching experiences because effectively, if there isn't money for vetting, then they don't get to live. So I would say something like if it was over $150 or $200 to help the animal get to health and wellness well enough to be adopted. If it was more than that, they were euthanized. And you would see carts of cats euthanized. And as an animal lover, a lifelong animal lover of everything, that was devastating. And I began working with dog rescues, rabbit rescues, cat rescues, picking up anything in duress, anything in harm's way. anything anyone needed help with. So if someone found an animal, they would call me. If they saw a dumped rabbit, they would call me. If an animal was injured, they would call me. Just 2 summers ago, one of the neighbors I hadn't met yet comes knocking on my door, and I recognized him, but we didn't know each other well at this point. And he says, "I heard you're the animal whisperer." I said, "But you're thinking, who told you that? But okay, let's roll with it. How can I help? There's a raccoon with a broken leg stuck on my roof, and I can't get it down, and the city won't come." So I'm like, all right, well, this is my first. Whenever people come, you know you're going to help. You've just never done it before, and now you'll learn. So I set a stinky trap on his roof with like fishy cat food. And eventually he hobbled into the trap, and I crawled back up on the roof and brought it down. And we were able to call the city for the animal to be humanely euthanized. But effectively, nobody would come to help this raccoon because it was on a roof, and it would have died from sun exposure and dehydration, a long and painful death. So instead, it ate lots of stinky tuna salmon food and was instead humanely euthanized and not suffering. So that's just one example of one of the weird things that happens when people hear you're in animal rescue.
Well, tell me a little bit about life after Philip 66, and then I guess the menagerie of animals that have come and gone and that are there now.
Okay, so basically, I guess when the pandemic hit, obviously that was very challenging for a lot of industries. And I really do think that businesses did their absolute best. We want to say that businesses were selfish in their actions of releasing people, but the reality is if the entire business goes down, then no one has a job. So if we have to slice and dice a few to save the many, we got to do it. And I was a casualty. So I was somebody that was released. My entire team was released, sadly. The entire international team, some were able to retire, which was great, but others were just kind of left. I don't want to say blindsided, but I don't think anybody saw this coming the way that it did. So it was a little bit heartbreaking, but it happens. It happens, and you have to be prepared for it. And I had never lost a job in my life. So I think you've been in corporate for about 20 years, and you've always been a top performer. And you're always, hitting the marks and being badass and kicking butt. And then you lose your job for the first time at 40. Can I tell you what a tailspin this will send you for? Perhaps if I'd had other, like maybe if I had a marriage or children, I may have been more invested in those. And so I would have said, oh, it's a job, no big deal. But I'm single, never married, no children. And I did marry myself to my career. And so having lost my first job at 40, I was devastated. I did not know what to do with myself. I was like, who am I if I don't have a career? Who am I if I am not earning and with a title and with a great company? I'm a nobody. And it was just so interesting, the thought process that happened for me and the feelings of inadequacy that rose from something that happens to people every single day, and they just pick up and keep going and everything's fine. And on the tail of me saying, tough times come, but we just have to be positive and optimistic, I could not, happy Holly my way out of this one. I could not just, acknowledge we hit a pandemic. There was a need to lean things out. You were a very new hire. And as a result, these things happen. I was devastated. So in the process of attempting to jump into something else, it's quite humorous. I said, if I go for an interview, I'm going to cry. They're going to be like, and why did you leave your last post? I was so sure I could not get through an interview without crying. And a friend said, you know what? Have you ever thought of taking like a sabbatical? Like, just don't look for something else. Just take some time. I mean, our parents' generation, if you take time, you're a slacker. If you're taking time for yourself at this phase of the game, there's something wrong. So, as you know, if someone says left, I go right. So I was like, yeah, I'm doing this. So I decided to take the time, and in the time, I decided to renovate my whole home and my backyard and rescue lots and lots of cats. So over the last year and a half, I have rescued, I'm on my 30th rescue right now. So I have brought into my home, brought back to health, and adopted out 30 cats from my home. I have the last bunch with me now, 4 7-week-old kittens that don't have their mummy. She rejected them, sadly. But that's what I've been doing. So as you can imagine, a whole home renovation takes a lot of time. So what happened initially was I started quoting the project, and everybody was telling me it was going to be like $160,000 to renovate my whole home. And I says, to me, that's a no for me. Because I feel that I was spoiled with my dad being so handy and talented. These prices were egregious to me, which, let me preface this with, they're not. You pay for professionals because they do professional work. They are worth their weight in gold, and they are worth every penny. I just didn't have that many pennies. So in my mind, I said, how can I still achieve the goal without going this route? And my answer was to be my own project manager. So I effectively became a contractor for a year of my time off. And so I was arranging trades, hiring, interviewing for drywallers, mudders, tapers, electricians, plumbers, floorers, insulation companies. You name it, it was going on. Deck installation, sod laying, ground leveling. Like, I was doing everything, and it was an amazing experience. And in the end, I did end up saving $100,000 as a result of saying, I can do this. So I took kind of that project management portion and decided to just roll with it. I've been around my dad doing this forever, so I understood a lot of terminology, lingo, and process. And so if there was ever any instances that I wasn't clear, so I'll give you a great example. The deck is being built in the backyard, and the joists are 2x6 or 2x8s, but the expanse is 12 feet and the deck is 40 feet long. And so I walk outside and I'm walking on the joists, and it's like I'm on a bouncy castle and I'm bouncing on the joists. So I say to the guy, I'm like, are these the right joists for this expanse? I believe this span requires a 2x12, not a 2x8 or two. Anyways, I don't know if it was a 2x6 or a 2x8 that he had. I said, these are very bouncy. And he's like, no, it's to code. And I'm like, I don't think so. So my dad lives a couple hours away, called dad. He comes. I said, Dad, I just think the joists are wrong. I think they're supposed to be 18 inches apart, not 24. I think they're supposed to be 2x12s, not 2x8s. And he's like, well, yeah, this is stupid. This isn't going to hold shit. And that's how my dad is. So, the guy is standing there. I'm like, we could have a normal conversation. We don't need to, make him feel like crap. But anyways, turns out he's looking at the code book from like 2012, and it's like 2021. So he's like 10 years out of date with his code book. And now they are saying that they've underquoted. They now have to reinforce the joists with 2x12s. And that's an extra, $1,000 expense they're going to have to incur as a result of not knowing the code. But I think that was kind of one of the best examples of getting to work alongside my dad, because he built all of our fences, he built all of our decks, he did all of our renovations. And so I got to be there by his side. He didn't have sons, he had me. So I got to be there holding the tools and watching him do what he's doing, and the wrench, the Phillips, the what have you. And so I had an idea while I was going through this process of what it should be versus what it was. So yeah, saved $100,000 that way, and was able to take my 1970 fixer upper and turn it into, a modern and fresh and airy and safe environment, because my floors had holes in them. My ceilings had holes in them. You'd be sitting on the couch watching a movie and a silverfish would fall out of the attic on your shoulder. That's how kind of, it was a bit sad in here. But real estate is very expensive here. And so you kind of have to buy old fixer-uppers in order to get into the market. So I was very grateful to have this home. And then I was grateful again to be able to update it and make it safe and warm and cozy.
Well, what's next for you professionally?
I am looking right now, applying to lots of opportunities and very eager to be productive in the workforce again. So, I've rescued the 30 cats, renovated the home, renovated the yard, became a gardener as well, developed a green thumb that I never had before. And I think much of what I gathered and cultivated over the last year and a half is going to make me an exponentially better person in my career and in my life than I ever was before. So I'm really just looking for anything. If it was in our industry, that'd be great. Engine oil, hydraulic fluid, lubricants, anything of that nature, I think would be a blessing. Anything outside of the industry would also be a blessing. I think I'm malleable and can adjust and learn, and I'm eager. So operations, I love analyst roles. I love leadership roles, anything of that nature that would give me the opportunity to be productive for an organization and be a part of the common goal. I think I'm open.
Well, if money was no concern at all and you could pick your dream job, what would that be?
If I could pick my dream job, because money was no obstacle, I would own 100 acres in somewhere in the woods by a lake. And I would have a animal sanctuary on the one side, a massive mess hall, and a bunch of tiny homes throughout the forest, all connected by cobblestone paths to a giant fire pit. And it would be work retreats. So people would bring their teams to do team building. They would volunteer their time to care for animals, make communal meals in the mess hall. We'd have yoga and meditation, and we'd have hiking, biking, kayaking, canoeing, all of the stuff that we've kind of lost touch from. In a major metropolis, a lot of people, you live in a concrete jungle and you sit in front of a TV or a computer or you're on a phone. And I think it's disconnected us from who we are intended to be and our natural rhythm in the world and in life. And so I think that's what I would want to do. I would want to cultivate an environment of wellness that brings people back to themselves.
Sounds like you may have thought about that a few times before.
Once or twice.
Well, I know you need to get a cat to the vet and not very long here. Do you have anything else you'd care to share with the audience out there?
Thank you so much for your patience and making sure we were able to have this opportunity. I know it took some time, but I'm really grateful to be on your podcast. It's really amazing. It was great to see Mindy and Mike, and I will watch more episodes because it is so nice to see other people's paths and experiences and grow and learn from them, but also appreciate their willingness to be transparent and open. So it sounds a little bit hippy dippy-ish, but I think I would just say, go in love and light in the world is what I would most often say.
Well, it sounds like this podcast is doing just what I hoped it would then. And I do appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
We'll keep in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. We will. Have an amazing day.
You too.
Okay. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
This has been a production of Where You At Studios, LLC.